Greetings, family. We are live. Sister Shanice in the house for another Wisdom Wednesday session on the Sister Shanice Show. We have a very special guest lined up for you today. None other than Brother Joseph Patterson. Mr. Patterson, he is the leader of Jamaica's third largest political party. So we're really looking forward to having a conversation with him. As you come through the door, family, I just want to welcome you, and I just want to encourage you to give us a thumbs up and a like, and also to encourage you to drop a message in the chat as well. So welcome as you come through the door. Now, for those of you who maybe haven't tuned in for a little while, you may not know that I've actually launched my book. Yeah, I've been talking about this book that I've been writing for quite a few months. Well, the book is actually out now and available on Amazon. Okay, so if you would like to support the works that I'm doing here, you can by buying a copy of my book. Let me share screen, and then I can just show you the front cover of that book. Okay, and then we're going to go straight over to invite our guest into the house. So welcome family. Really excited to be sharing with you the fact that the book is now available on Amazon. You can get it via amazon.com, or you can get the book via amazon.co.uk. So as you can see here, the title of the book is A Black King of Anglo-Saxon Britain. Yes, did you know that there were black kings ruling Britain during Anglo-Saxon times? I didn't, even though I went to school, college and university in the UK. It's part of the history that has been hidden from us. And as we do the research, we find out that there is a vast history that we have in England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales. A lot of it, almost all of it, totally covered up. You get the impression that, you know, the first we arrived was during the Windrush days, but that is definitely not the case, okay? So do go and check out the book. You can buy it now, as I said, and as it's a festive season and you might want it as a gift, then do go ahead and get the book as a gift for a loved one. Okay, let me stop the share now and go back to the screen. Okay, where do I stop sharing here? Okay, it seems to have stopped shared anyway. Okay, so we have our guest backstage, family. I'm going to bring him on stage now. None other than Mr. Joseph Patterson. Welcome to the Sister Shanice Show. Mr. Patterson, it is indeed an honor and a privilege to have you join us today on the Sister Shanice Show. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you, Sister Shanice, and I'm very proud and very pleased to be on your program tonight or this morning or this afternoon, depending on where your viewer is joining us from. And I'm looking forward to having a good chat with you and to answer any questions they might have about Jamaica or what we're doing here in Jamaica.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's music to my ears, and it's music to the ears of our viewers, I'm sure. Let's have a quick look over in the chat, just make sure that we've got our audience coming through the door. Let's see. Yes, we've got Audrey McLean in the house. Rise up, rise up. We've got Strength in the house as well. So it should be a good show. Unfortunately, I have to work. Oh, so you won't be able to listen intently to all of it. But yeah, you can revisit it a little later tonight because the shows are recorded. Okay, we've got Lance in the house. Welcome. We've got Annalisa in the house. Let us know where in the world you are viewing us from. We've got Rosemary in the house. Rise up, Rosemary. Rosemary was the one who introduced us to yourself. Sister Afrojamo in the house, saying, welcoming you, Mr. Patterson, and everyone in the house. She's watching us from Ghana. Awesome. Rise up, Cheryl. Rise up. Each and every one of you who are in the house, just drop us a message in the chat if you'd like to see your name come up. And if you have a question, if you have comments, if you have any short statements, then the chat is the place to actually be dropping these messages throughout the show today. So remember, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, so that you can help to boost our ratings, okay? We are looking forward to the content of this show today going around the world because, as you know, Jamaica is loved the whole world over. So today's conversation, family, as I said, is going to be focusing on Jamaica. Let me make sure that I've got all my notes lined up. So yes, I've got the CV for our guests lined up. Absolutely fantastic. And let me just minimize a couple of these other pages here that I don't actually need right now. So yes, we are going to be focusing on sunny Jamaica, that paradise island in the Caribbean, with a population of about 2.8 million people. Very small population, but despite the small size of Jamaica, oh my gosh, the impact of that country is felt the world over. I'm sure you all agree with me in the chat. And due to the high rate of immigration, from Jamaica for work since the 1960s. There's a large Jamaican diaspora around the world, especially in places like Canada, the USA, the UK, sizable Jamaican diasporas there. And in some places like the UK, where I'm from, we've got, first, second, third, even fourth now generation Jamaicans who still, love Jamaica as if Jamaica was their home. Even though, as I said, they're fourth generation Jamaica born outside of Jamaica. I've got fourth generation family members who are visiting Jamaica right now. So we're definitely keeping the connection alive and kicking. Now, such a small country, but as I said, huge global influence for its size. It's the birthplace of the Rastafari religion, reggae music, genres such as dubstep, dancehall. They're known for their cricketers, for their sprinters, and all their other athletes. A wonderful, beautiful, tropical Paradise Island. And as I said, we have the pleasure of having Joseph Patterson in the house, who is the founder and president of UIC Jamaica. First of all, let's go over to Mr. Patterson and ask him if he can just tell us, firstly, what the UIC is abbreviated for.
Sure. Before I answer that question, let me just say a quick shout out to some of the people I'm seeing on your program, like Miss Jasmine Powell, who is the vice president of the UIC, one of the three vice presidents. I'm seeing Annalisa Gillespie, and I'm also seeing Rosemary King, who is one of our strongest supporter over there in the UK, and I'm seeing Douglas Harper as well. So shout out to all of you. Glad to see you on. In terms of the initials, UIC, it stands for United Independence Congress. And where that came from is the fact that we are uniting the Jamaican people to be independent thinkers, not to be partisan in their thought processes, but to be policy driven. And a Congress instead of a party. We're trying to get rid of the partisan tribal politics that we have in Jamaica and encourage people to be a Congress, to sit around the circle, the old ancient African way, if you will, of coming to consensus as a group, as opposed to seeing ourselves as each other's enemy and following the colonial model of partisan divide and conquer.
Yeah, makes great sense. We do need more sensible politics the world over. The democracy, I don't think it works for Africa, and it doesn't seem to be working for Jamaica either. So absolutely time for change and for us to be having a more common sense approach to politics. So I'm glad to hear that by way of opening. So let's find out a little bit about who Mr. Joseph Patterson is. What we do know is that he's a husband, father, and patriot who loves his family, community, and the country passionately. He's got a vision for Jamaica, and we're going to go into that in a little while. But first of all, please tell us in your own words a little bit about yourself, Mr. Patterson.
Sure. When you were talking a while ago and you mentioned the outstanding features of Jamaica, you talked about reggae. and Bob Marley, and our sprinters like Usain Bolt and Shelley and Fraser and Elaine Thompson and so on. And the fact that Jamaica has had a big impact on the world in so many ways. What I want to achieve is I want Jamaica to have a new and profound impact on the world in terms of the system of governance, how we govern ourselves as a people, how we govern ourselves not just in Jamaica, but in Africa, and eventually globally. So the model that I'm going to talk to you about later is going to reflect on that. Now, this comes from my upbringing as a child. So I was born to a single mother of three at the time. She had three children. She was living in a small 12 by 12 room. We did not have any indoor bathroom or kitchen. So we had one little bed to one side, a little table, a little stove, a little cabinet with a black and white TV on it. And so we were really poor financially, but we were rich in terms of the relationship that we had as a family. And we slept on this one little bed, head to toe, four of us on this bed. And unfortunately, when you're a single mother in the context of Jamaica in the 1970s, and you're uneducated, because my mother, I think, only had a grade 9 education or a grade 10, somewhere there. And she got pregnant early, and so she fell out of school and all of that. So trying to raise three children with her situation meant that she didn't have time to really help us with her schoolwork and stuff like that. So all of her children really struggled in school, and I was no exception. And so I failed at the common entrance, which is the entrance exam to go into high school back in those days. I failed at it examination twice. And then I failed at the technical entrance as well. So I was really on my way to becoming what some people call a really good pretty dunce. Now, when I got to about the age of 11, a few years earlier, I met my father. So I realized that he was living a more opulent life than my mother. And so I wrote my mom a letter and told her that it's time for my father to take on some of the responsibilities of raising me, given the cost. So I left home at 11 and went to live with my father. And one night I heard my stepmother explaining to my father that there's no point in paying money for me to go to one of the technical high schools because that was very expensive. And I apparently couldn't do much with my head. So I needed to go to a school where I learned to do something with my hands. So I ended up at Spanish Town Secondary, a school where you send, those who are less than gifted academically. But on hearing what my stepmother said, I decided to do something differently. And so I went on a mission to convert my secondary school into a traditional high school. I taught them to have debating society, to create a quiz team, to have a drama club, to organize our student council. And so I became president of all of these organizations, became president of the science club. And incidentally, my wife was also attending the same school. She wasn't my wife then, but I met her in the 8th grade. And so she was my assistant in all of these grand endeavors. And so by the time I finished Spanish Town Secondary, I had amassed quite a resume of accomplishments in school, including becoming head boy. And my wife would be the head girl as well. And so I got a scholarship at the same time to technical high school, where that was kind of like a second chance, if you will, now to be in a high school with, all bright kids. And I was told that I wouldn't be able to do well with them because I'm only bright in the Spanish Town Secondary because I'm among students who were not so bright. So I decided to go on a mission again to see if I could prove that to be wrong. And so at St. Andrew Technical, I rose to become head boy again. I founded the math club president. I was the leader of the debating society. I got a gold medal for article writing from the Gleaner, was VP Finance for the Junior Achievement, among other things. So I did very, very well. I amassed a complete total of about 13 subjects and went on to get a full scholarship to study engineering at the University of Technology, which was called CAST back in the days, College of Art, Science and Technology. And from there, I would become a teacher of physics, math, and engineering science at Kingston Technical. And then became an assistant manager for the sugar company out in Money Musk, doing instrumentation and controls. And then my wife and I, as promised, as we agreed we would do, we got married after college. And so upon being married, we migrated to Canada. She was there before me. And so I ended up going to Canada, where I became a CPA, Chartered Professional Accountant, rose up the ranks, had some really tough times in the beginning, on minimum wage. At one point, I think we were so bad off financially that I was on welfare. And all of those experiences kind of really, shaped my character. And eventually I rose to become a director of financial reporting and control in the government, where I had to take care of a budget of about 2 billion Canadian dollars, which really opened my eyes, in terms of dealing with all of these ministries and all of the technicalities of government. And so about 11 years ago, I was very fortunate to be able to organize my family, and we all returned here to Jamaica. And thus began the new journey here in Jamaica with a new movement called the UIC.
What a wonderful background story that is, a story of someone who's experienced, the hardship of life. He wasn't born with a silver spoon in your mouth, but you know what it's like to have to work hard. You know what it's like to have to, struggle to budget. You've had that experience, the everyday experience that most of us, have to go through. Not the sort of typical background story of many politicians who then go on to become leaders of political parties. And you know what it's like to have to, prove people wrong and strive for success and actually, manage to achieve it. And very importantly as well, you've acquired, quite a bit of experience of kind of managing local government budgets, managing government budgets, which is critical really to running a country successfully, because as we all know, there are so many African and Caribbean countries that are struggling financially, mainly because they just don't have the experience of managing budgets effectively. So, well, that kind of puts you in a good standing there, I must say. Thank you so much for sharing, your background with us, and and also there's quite a lot in there that you could have left out, but you decided to share that with us. So that's very insightful. Thank you so much. And then obviously you and your family, you returned to Jamaica now. And when you returned to Jamaica, before you actually set up the party, I mean, tell us what it was that you saw about Jamaica that made you decide, you know what, Jamaica needs something different. There's something missing here. I think there's a gap that maybe I can fill myself with the right team around me. What was it? What were the issues that were facing you in Jamaica that made you decide to set up this party?
Sure. So when I left Jamaica in 1993, I believe, 93, 94, I was already committed to returning to Jamaica. My wife would tell you that when I got to Canada, I was already planning my return to Jamaica immediately. When I came back to Jamaica, I was very, very disappointed with what I saw. I left a country where, when I graduated from college, I had about 4 job offers. Today, I see young people not being able to find a single job offer or a job offer that is within the context of their schooling. I studied engineering and I had 4 engineering related job offers. Today, that's very, very difficult to find. So I knew I had to do something to fix this problem. I also noticed that nothing much has changed in the country. The corruption level remained the same and even worse. The school system continues to fail 70% of our students and even more. The healthcare system continues to be insufficient, understaffed, poorly equipped, and the customer service level way below what you would want to have. So when I look around at everything, the inefficiencies, the low productivity, the lack of prosperity for the vast majority, I felt something had to be done. But unfortunately, I didn't see any possibility of the 2 traditional parties who at that point had been in office for some 65 years. And so I decided that the only way for this to be fixed is if we, the people, created our own solution, our own political movement, and decide to deal with the problem ourselves. And so that led me to the creation of the UIC. About almost 2 years after I returned, I started to shape the policies and the programs, the design, the constitution, the mission, the vision of the UIC. And that's what has brought us to this point now. There are lots of difficulties along the way. When you come back to a country like this, you have to get reoriented into the system. Getting a personal bank account has its challenges. Being able to deal with the inconsistencies in electricity, dealing with the security concerns. In one of our experiences, my wife was home in the kitchen, and we homeschooled our children, so they were all home at the time. And while in the kitchen, she saw somebody jumping the fence or in our backyard, and there's a police right behind them, and then there's a ring of bullets, and then the gentleman or the person was found dead on the other side. So those were pretty scary moments. I mean, it's like the Wild West. Now, mind you, we're coming from Canada, where, at the time it was a very safe country, a very clean country, a very orderly country. We didn't have even a fence around our front yard. You could walk up to the door easily. We didn't have burglar bars on our doors or our windows. Here in Jamaica, you live behind bars. Everybody has burglar bars for the most part on their windows and doors. If you're coming home late at night in Jamaica, you have to be looking over your shoulders, being careful before you come out of your vehicle. While in Canada, I didn't have to do that. I'd come home any time of night. I didn't feel, insecure. I didn't feel I needed to be doing anything special. You might even forget to close the front door when you go in Canada. Here in Jamaica, you just don't do that. You don't forget to close the front door. You don't forget to close the gate. You're very, very focused on your security. I also ran a number of businesses in Canada. I was highly invested in small and medium enterprises, my buy and sell companies when I was there. And I found it so easy to engage in starting companies, buying companies, trading companies, working with startups to build their businesses. Very, very easy. The only focus was on, or the primary focus was on product design, product management, customer service, looking at the whole cycle of the business operation. Here in Jamaica, a large part of your time and energy is taken up with security. How do I protect this from being stolen? How do I protect, the company from being robbed, or the employees from being robbed, or the company from being robbed by the employees? So security takes up so much energy and time that I think it drains the Jamaican people of their productivity and of their innovativeness. And in fact, a lot of our innovation in Jamaica is spent being, good criminals. How do I get to steal from my employer? How do I get to steal from somebody? How do I scam somebody? So a lot of energy, goes in the wrong direction. You see the skills of our people being demonstrated, not in innovation for positive growth and development, but innovation in stealing and scamming. So it tells you that we have the competences, we have the ability to learn and grow, but because of the constraint of our governance model, it has pushed too many of our children, too many of our young people away from the productive sector and into the less productive crime aspect of life. And it's because crime pays in Jamaica, unfortunately, and we need to change that.
Absolutely. As we're talking about crime, I think, the world over is very aware of the crime situation in Jamaica. Backstage, I was sharing with you that I would have loved to have been able to retire in Jamaica, but, the crime, especially towards people of the diaspora, seems to be quite targeted. And this is something that the diaspora has been complaining about from the days of my grandmother and grandfather when they were preparing to return to Jamaica. Nothing happened during their lifetime. Nothing changed during my parents' lifetime. They weren't able to return. And, I've had to look to relocate elsewhere other than Jamaica, as much as I would have loved to have come to Jamaica. Now, At the moment, I think you might need to put your mic on mute, Mr. Patterson, for me, please, while you're
Yes,
not speaking. I can get, or turn it down a bit. We're getting some feedback. Let's
sure.
just
Let me
turn the
see if I
volume
can do
down.
that here.
Yeah. Okay. Oops, no, we've lost you. Okay, so yeah, he's put himself on mute. Do come back on camera though. Nice picture we're looking at, but do come back on camera, Mr. Patterson. There you are. Okay. So, yeah, you're on mute now. Thank you. But maybe if you turn the volume down a bit as well, it might stop the feedback. So, crime, major issue. And I note that the biggest source of income for Jamaica is tourism. And what that also tells me is that, for the country is probably too reliant on tourism. You mentioned about the lack of job opportunities in sectors like engineering these days. And that could be because the move has gone towards tourism. But, you know, I wonder if anybody's done the calculation of the potential loss to Jamaica of the tens of thousands, possibly hundreds of thousands of first, second, third, and fourth generation people who would like to return to Jamaica, who'd like to sell up and return to Jamaica, who'd like to have their pensions coming out to Jamaica if they were only able to have the freedom and the safety to live out the rest of their years without fear. This is a real problem. What would you and your party, you think, do differently to protect people of the diaspora so that we could change this trend that seems to be some some criminals targeting returnees?
Sure. I mean, the real way to provide a safe environment for those who are returning from the diaspora is to provide a safe environment for all Jamaicans living here in Jamaica. So the UIC takes a very holistic approach. You may not know this, but the UIC was inspired by Marcus Garvey. We saw that Marcus Garvey back in the 1930s tried to create in Jamaica a people political party that would be based on uniting our people and liberating our people. And if you look at the UIC's manifesto and approach, it's about uniting us as a people and liberating us as a people. It's also based on transforming our education system into an Afrocentric education system that will help the student to understand his mind, body, and personality and recognize who he really is and how to be his best self. Now, fighting crime begins in two places, three places really, and they're all kind of related. You can't really put them one, two, three. They're all simultaneous. So the three places you need to fight crime, first of all, is in your government, making sure that you have good governance, a government which is not corrupt, a government where anyone who participates in corruption is quickly found and made to pay the ultimate price. That's number one. Number two, you have to make sure that your education system is equipping the person, the citizen, to be a maximum producer, performer, a person who understands their civic responsibilities, who understand their parental responsibilities, who understand their role in society, and how important it is to be an ethical and moral and productive person. That person then becomes a parent. So now you're impacting the home. So the home now must be a place where you have a miniature setup that is going to impact the community and impact the country. If you have homes with fathers and mothers who are well educated, meaning not just in the academics, but they're well educated about life, they understand themselves, their mind, their body, and personality. They understand human relations, how to relate to other people, how to have strong family relation, strong friend relation, strong business relation, strong international relations. So the family being the nucleus of our society. And then you want to ensure that all of your people understand money, wealth, economics, how to create wealth, how to manage wealth, how to ensure that your wealth lives on well beyond you. So you have generational wealth happening in our communities and our society. You want your people to understand the history and politics of money, the science of money, so that politicians cannot just trick you with many promises that sometimes are impractical and also counterproductive from an economic standpoint. So if you build a strong education system that addresses those three areas, which is understanding self, understanding people, and understanding money, if you build a government that is focused on being anti-corrupt and therefore delivering on the key things that people need, which is a safe environment, a clean environment, and an orderly environment, you are now creating the conditions for your people to be very productive, to produce the jobs they need, to produce the money that we need to provide the services that we need, the healthcare services, the education services, proper housing, a good environment, a clean environment, a beautiful environment, a very eco-friendly environment. So if you put all those things together, then you now start to be able to having a safe place for all the diasporan and for the tourists to come to. So the UIC has carefully plotted 10 points. We have a 10-point plan that addresses a number of these issues in the context of our overall manifesto, which is driven by one core factor, and that is the UIC is committed to protecting the life, liberty, and property rights of every citizen, and to do so equally. This foundation of freedom that Marcus Garvey spoke about, this foundation, which is the liberty Marcus Garvey spoke about, this foundation, which creates the basis for unity, which Marcus Garvey spoke about, is what is guiding the UIC and will guide our government and will, in the end, lead us to a new constitution that is truly Jamaican, no longer a colonial constitution, but a truly Jamaican constitution that will protect the sovereignty of every citizen and provide them the space and environment they need to achieve their full potential.
I like that response. Thank you so much. Very, very brilliant response. Absolutely agree with you on that. If the condition and the wealth situation and the education was improved for every single Jamaican, it would make it a better place for all of the citizens of Jamaica and for those who want to return. Brilliant, brilliant strategy there. You mentioned Marcus Garvey as well. His name did come up in the chat. You know, highly revered. Marcus Mosiah Garvey is very highly revered outside of Jamaica. And, you know, it's great that he's now honored in Jamaica itself. And someone did ask in the chat, so I wonder if you can tell us, are you in any way related to DJ Patterson?
Well, the truth is, I don't know. I've never taken the time to investigate any relations. I've never met him personally. We have never spoken before, and we clearly have very different political views. So the answer is, I don't know. I've heard members within the family circle saying that there are some relations, but that has not been proven. In any event, you know, what I normally say to people, sharing the last name with a person really doesn't mean anything, because the truth is we share the same slave masters, which is why we probably have the same, you know, name. He and I, our family, lost our name as a result of the slave trade. We lost our name, we lost our culture, we lost our identity. And so now we're on a journey to find ourselves. And so we must not judge anyone, for example, by the name that they have, but by the character that they display.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Let me bring in a question from the chat. This one is from Jack Clark. And Jack asks, how do you plan to help the poor, especially single mothers? Thanks for that question, Jack.
Beautiful question. Now, the UIC has a unique approach to solving the problem of poverty. We don't plan to play with this thing called poverty. We plan to really attack it and eliminate it. So that is why we're dedicating 10% of the budget. In Jamaica, we have a tax currently called the General Consumption Tax, GCT. And that tax is about 15% at the moment and brings a massive windfall to the government. We have decided to ensure Jamaica, under a UIC system of governance, we will only have two forms of taxes going forward. We're going to get rid of the plethora of taxes and limit the government to two taxes. One will be a 10% tax on income from all sources that all Jamaicans will pay. And the other one will be a sales tax of 10% on purchases, which all Jamaicans will also pay. But the 10% GCT or sales tax is going to be devoted entirely to eliminating poverty, as well as saving for emergencies and in addressing environmental protection issues. Under this system, we're going to ensure that every single child, regardless of their parents' income, will receive proper nutrition, proper health care, proper education, and decent housing. Now, these four things we think are critical if we're going to have well-developed human capital in Jamaica. We cannot afford to have our children not receive the best possible nutrition from the prenatal stage through the early childhood stage, through primary, secondary, or high school. So we want to make sure every child from pre-0 to 18 receives the best possible nutrition. If we do that, we're going to make sure that the mental faculties of our students are being well developed. So I want to start working with the mothers and the fathers to ensure the children you're bringing into this world are properly nourished. That's number one. Number two, we have to make sure children, regardless of their parents' income, receive good medical attention very early. So we want to chart the child's personal development from a biological standpoint and from a mental developmental standpoint. So we're going to care for every child uniquely and in a focused way. Then we have to ensure that those children are living in decent homes, not the way I grew up. So we're going to have a housing program similar to what was done in Singapore that will ensure we have a 98% home ownership rate. One of the ways we're going to do this is by, first and foremost, not using our best lands for a sprawling housing project. We're going to make all of those lands agricultural lands or industrialized lands that's going to produce the profits that we need to fund these kind of enterprises, which is protecting and developing our human capital. We're going to therefore make every Jamaican a property owner, which is key. Why I say this? Every Jamaican is entitled to the land of Jamaica. It's not the government's land. It's not crown land. This land actually belongs to the people of Jamaica. So we're going to treat the land the way a country with oil may treat its oil. And so this land must produce profits through those who are most entrepreneurial and enterprising. And a part of that profit must go to helping us to make sure we feed our children, take care of the healthcare of our children, and provide quality housing for our people so our children have quality housing. So now you're going to have a massive housing development program, most of which are going to be high-rise solutions so that we protect and preserve most of our lands for organic farming to make Jamaica the organic food capital of the world. Coupled with this initiative that I've just described are two key initiatives. One is what we call the Youth Employment Solution Program. This is a program where every child who leaves high school and is not going on to college or to a trades program will be employed in industry as a paid intern or a paid apprentice, so that they immediately go from school to work and learn the skills, the work ethics, develop the characteristics necessary to be an effective producing member of society. So that's every child that is leaving school. If they're not going on to university or a trades program or some other gainful employment, this will eliminate their accessibility to the gangs. And this will ensure that they don't get lost in the process. So they're transitioning immediately from school into this apprenticeship program. In fact, Our plan is to start them off in this apprenticeship program like they do in Germany from within the high school environment. So by the time they hit the age of, say, 16, they're already paired up with a company of their choice and they're learning as part of their regular studies what's happening in that company, how the processes work, learning skills and learning to work with other people, and developing a consciousness of work, a consciousness of productivity, and learning to earn honestly. The second part of this program now is what we call workfare, because we do not believe in welfare. So in our workfare program, any adult who is willing and able to work but does not have work will be placed in some form of work within one of the many companies or government agencies, for example, in agriculture or in firefighting or in manufacturing. And this is, they'll be in this program and they'll be paid in this program either to grow within it and get up to their higher levels of earning, or to acquire new skills and transition into a work or area of their choosing. But we're not going to leave anyone to become unemployable or to remain underemployed and not have access to the world of work to build their skills and grow. This is how we're going to eliminate poverty in Jamaica. But most importantly, you must have a solid system of governance to protect us from corruption, because every government program is an avenue for corruption. So if we don't fix the governance model first, which is what the UIC is going to do, then just having nice programs will simply mean more ways of politicians stealing taxpayers' money.
Right, let me exit the model here. Wow, well, that certainly sounds like a brilliant series of initiatives there designed to improve the economic income for ordinary family members there, and also pave the way for young people to develop skills within the country. Absolutely fantastic programs that you've just outlined there. Obviously, very well thought through as well. And I really like the idea of engaging the young people throughout the schooling system and beyond, so that they go from school into industry, and that they're thinking about the industry that they want to go into as well. And that places and opportunities like internship are actually provided for them. Yeah, that will keep them away from crime. Absolutely brilliant initiative there. And as you said, very importantly as well, working towards eradicating corruption in politics so that that money that's earmarked for those programs actually does reach its intended destination. I think, the person answering that question would be very happy with that response. We've got a few more questions coming in. So let me put one to you here. I saw one referring to guns and crime in Jamaica. This one is from Sister Afrijamo from Ghana, who says that the West has a lot to do with the crime in Jamaica. Guns are not manufactured in Jamaica. So true, we all know guns are not manufactured in Jamaica, but from what we hear from outside of the Jamaica, it's as if every other household has access to a gun in Jamaica. How are these guns coming in? Why is it that such a small country is flooded with so much ammunition? And, do you know? And if you do, what are you planning to do to, reverse this trend, please?
Sure. Jamaica has one of the highest crime rates in the world. We're currently at around 46 murders per 100,000, as compared to a country like Singapore, which has 0.02 murders per 100,000. And I normally use Singapore because the two countries have a similar start, 1965, 62 independence, and they were also colonial countries. And Singapore was way behind us, and we could have been way ahead. Now, the reason Jamaica has such a huge crime problem is quite explainable. In the 1970s in particular, well, first of all, this began in the 1940s when the colonial powers, which they always do, the colonial powers, before they leave any country, and even while they're in the country, they made sure that they divide the people into two or more factions or tribes. That's why Africa is carved up the way that it is. That is why India is divided into India and Pakistan, even though it's one people. And that is why Jamaica has two parties that are polarized and tribalized and has been used to distract and divide the people so that those in power can extract the wealth of the people. So they divided Jamaica into these two tribes. And since the 1940s, they have tricked us in turning our attention away from the real problem, which was the colonial powers that took over our country, that controls our resources and keep us impoverished. They were able to trick us into stop fighting against the colonial powers for our freedom and start fighting each other for scarce benefits and spoils. So our politicians then of the two major parties embarked on a scheme of importing guns and giving it to our young men and turning them into criminal interns, criminal apprentices in the local communities, which we call garrison communities. So what they did, the politicians used these small gangs, which then became bigger gangs. They also used government resources to give contracts to the don leaders. The leaders of the gangs are the dons in those communities. They gave them contracts to fix roads, which they can't fix, for example, or contracts to run a pump house, which they can't do. So now we're getting poor quality for tax dollars, much of which is also borrowed money. So that's digging us deeper into a grave of debt and high interest, which would then suck up most of our money, which is supposed to go into our social services. So over time, those criminal gangs have become many and powerful. They became masters at trafficking drugs between Jamaica as a transshipment points and other countries. They became masters at owning the politicians. So the politicians used to own them. Over time, the gang leaders became the masters of the politician. You saw what happened in 2011 with Bruce Golding, where you had a president in his constituency, and he was the prime minister of Jamaica. And the prime minister of Jamaica was in effect reporting to a president in his constituency who was a gang leader. So that's the kind of Jamaica we have today, where the gangs have become very, very powerful. Now, the gangs are really an offshoot of the two major gangs that run our country. So the two parties that run our countries are really two gangs. If you think about it, they have been there to bring guns into the country. They have helped to create the garrison communities. They have provided protection for the gang leaders, whether in the courts or from the police or among the police. They have organized the upper level of our police force to be more like another form of gang as opposed to really protecting and serving the people of Jamaica. So the police is corrupt. The legislative or the judicial process rather is corrupt. The politician is corrupt. And so now you have a perfect system for organized crime to operate in Jamaica. Now that means guns and ammunition can come into the country very easily, because now you have from top to bottom the chain of command in a position to facilitate the gun trade and to cover up and to protect those who need to be protected. So at the end of the day, the reason for Jamaica's crime problem are really the two parties that are in power for the last 78 years who have designed this elaborate system of organized crime. And then they tell us that they are the ones to solve the problem that they created and which they are protecting and which will always be as long as they're in charge of our government.
Just unmuting myself here. What a shocking state of affairs that is indeed. Clearly a huge amount of work that needs to be done in a short space of time as well to get rid of the guns and to transform the system, the political structure in Jamaica. Hence why, your party is, running alongside the other two parties. So let's hope that your voice gets to the ears and the hearts of every single Jamaican out there so that they can share your vision for a better Jamaica and to see where the problems really lies. So thank you, Afrijamo, for that questionnaire, and thank you, Mr. Patterson, for your response. Let me just scroll down and see what other questions we have, and feel free to pull out a question too, Mr. Patterson, if you see one there that you would like to respond to.
Sure.
Uh, this one, what's this one? We've got a question here from Kwame Aboje. Welcome, Brother Kwame. And he says, Baba Joe, if you were president of your island, would you encourage Jamaica to get out of the so-called Commonwealth, or would you prefer for Jamaica to remain in the Commonwealth? What is your view and vision regarding Jamaica's position in the Commonwealth?
Thank you for that question, Kwame. I would absolutely extricate Jamaica from the Commonwealth as president of Jamaica. Not only the Commonwealth, I would also take Jamaica out of the IMF if I am president. And I would make sure that Jamaica adopts sound money, meaning real money, money backed by productivity, not fiat money. I would rethink many, if not all, of the international arrangements that we have on the basis that any arrangement we get into must be one that protects the individual and collective sovereignty of the Jamaican people. And if it doesn't, we should not be a part of it.
Mm, brilliant. Thank you for that response there. So definitely, and definitely not for the Commonwealth and sees the shortcomings of it. We say here in the UK, the only thing common about the Commonwealth is all the wealth goes to the West.
Absolutely.
Yeah, indeed. So, Rosemary's commenting and agreeing with you about bad governance being one of the main reasons that Jamaica's in the mess that it is. Rise up, Rosemary there. Now, a couple of shows back, we had a brother, John Lennon, on the show, and he was talking to us about how renewable energy could significantly contribute towards transforming Jamaica's economy. As we all know, Jamaica is a paradise island that is rich with sunshine, wind, and water, all that could be, sources of clean energy. But Jamaica doesn't seem to be moving towards clean energy, solar energy, wind power energy, or waste renewable energy. Why is it that Jamaica, what's preventing Jamaica from actually moving in this direction? Or does Jamaica just think it's not such a good idea?
The answer is very simple. All the problems Jamaica faces, every single problem that we face is caused by bad governance. Every problem. So let me now explain to you what I mean by that in the context of energy. Jamaica, our politicians are extremely lazy. Okay, their only purpose in government is to figure out how to extort, how to rob, how to extract the wealth of the Jamaican people. They're not there to create a country which fits the needs of the Jamaican people. So let's take energy. They're not concerned that Jamaica is one of the most expensive places in the world in which to buy energy for your home, or to buy energy for your vehicle or anything. So they're okay with simply selling a piece of Jamaica to anybody to create a monopoly and then own and run our energy infrastructure as long as the government and the politicians get a deal out of it. And so they have been getting a deal. Our energy sector, the JPS as we call it, is a monopoly sector over energy production and sale in Jamaica. The regulations are designed to protect them and to keep them in that monopolistic position. It's not designed to encourage wide-scale development of alternative energy across Jamaica. We don't have a policy that is designed to get the Jamaican people, our scientists, our entrepreneurs, our innovators, producing energy from a variety of mix of sources. And so because of that, the Jamaican people continue to suffer the consequences. The UIC is going to change that. One, we're going to make the technology available in Jamaica by removing the excessive tariffs and duties that prevent Jamaicans from buying technologies to be able to either use or even innovate and create and expand those technologies to meet our needs. So in a UIC system of governance, you're going to see an advanced use of bio, geothermal, solar, hydro, um, all mix of energies being used in Jamaica. I can tell you this, that Jamaica has a massive untapped source of not only solar energy, but bioenergy as well. We can produce tremendous amount of bio and solar energy, and we have the capacity even for hydro in some areas. We also have a massive amount of geothermal energy that could be extracted. So the UIC is going to open up the energy market and allow the Jamaican people, home and abroad, to invest in, I don't want to call them alternative energy, but renewable energy and other forms of energy that can bring the cost of energy down for the Jamaican people. But the only way we can get that in Jamaica is if we have a system of good governance that incentivizes politicians to do the right thing. Right now, the colonial system that we have in place does not incentivize its politicians to do what is right, but rather to do what is wrong. And so for 78 years, they have been doing what is wrong. And as a result, that denies us of the low cost, cheap energy that we could have. It denies us of the education we could have. It denies us of the economy that we could have.
Thank you so much. You are very clear in where you're pointing your fingers for the major challenges and problems that you're facing in Jamaica. I hope I'm coming out okay. My camera seems to be sticking a little bit, but I hope that's not causing too much of a problem.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah. Really important to get the governance right. And you're very open and very outspoken, with regards to where some of the major problems are in Jamaica. We've
Yeah,
got
I think,
a question here from. Mhm. Yeah, okay. We've got a question here from Man Taylor. Thank you for your question. He says, Mr. Patterson's endeavors are admirable, but how can you compete with the shadow government in Jamaica? Further, the past colonial powers who still rule, e.g., the IMF, are of hang on, are of the aforementioned. So, how can you compete with, against these two major parties who clearly
yeah,
have the backing of major European institutions and the former colonial powers? How can you realistically compete? Please advise us on that.
yeah. I always like to get questions like this because they are speaking to the issue of when you're faced with a challenge, what do you do? Do you see the challenge for the mountain that it is and decide that the mountain is too big and you're not going to bother to climb, so you'll sit at the bottom? Let's say you find yourself in a pit, you drop into a pit, and it looks really difficult to pull yourself out of the pit. You have two choices. You can either sit there and die for certain, or you can try and possibly succeed. And so I'm of the opinion that even though the task before us is great, the mountain before us is very high, the challenge is apparently insurmountable. We must do something, or else something will be done to us. So the way I look at it is when I look at my ancestors that were um, abducted from Africa, for example, and chatteled, chained, and exported and sold, and abused and raped, and denied their basic human dignity and worth. And I saw how they fought against tremendous odds. You think of what Nani of the Maroon accomplished in forcing the English to sign a treaty with her for the Maroons because she was giving them so much trouble. When you think of how Sam Sharp was willing to stand on the gallows and said, I would rather die on yonder gallows than live in slavery, and gave his life for our freedom. When you think of a Paul Bogle, who, by all intents and purposes, was among the richer of the blacks, he could have kept himself quiet and enjoyed a nice and comfortable life within a very bad system. But he placed his life on the line to stand up for justice and freedom, and he lost it. And when you think of George William Gordon, a half-white man in Jamaica who could have made himself a comfortable time in the legislature and just ignore the plights of those of darker skin and the problems they faced. And he decided that he would rather stand up for what is true, and in the process lost his life. When you think of Marcus Garvey, who, though had a tremendous amount of difficulties in building the UNIA and building a movement that would transform the minds of Africans across the world, those in Africa and those outside, and to this day has left a mark on their minds. When you think of what he has accomplished, against all odds, without social media, without many of the things we have today, my God, we can do much better. We should be ashamed of ourselves if we decided not to do anything, not to stand up, just because of shadow governments, because of colonial powers, because of what they may do to us. If our ancestors could have stood up then, we have no excuse but to do more than stand up now. And so what I'm doing, I have created the UIC, knowing that I have to convince you, the large expanse of the Jamaican diaspora, to say, listen, we want Jamaica to be what it could be: a safe country, a clean country, an orderly country that respects my individual sovereignty, that protects our collective sovereignty, that gives us the opportunity to live, earn, and retire with dignity. And because I want that, I am going to join hands with my fellow Jamaicans and say, let's get rid of colonialism once and for all. Let's get rid of the stranglehold that the private sector organization of Jamaica, through two colonial parties, have on our economy and our people. Let's lift their foot off our necks by putting our money where our mouths are. And if all of us, or even a large percentage of us, gave a portion of our meager wealth, like $25 a month, and say, let's build and own our own party, we can realize the dream of Marcus Garvey and take control and free ourselves and be a model of African unity right here in Jamaica, and impress upon the minds of the African diaspora to do the same in Africa, and then create the one Africa that we all want to see.
Another phenomenal vision there, and with concrete proposals on how it could actually be implemented. I certainly hope that you'll post your links in the description box below, so that people who want to join you in helping to bring this vision to a fruition, will have the means to be able to do so, to contribute to making it happen. I absolutely agree. Where there's a will, there's a way, and we can't let any mountain that seems too big get in the way of our determination to bring about the change that we want to see. People in the chat here, complimenting and admiring your vision and your plans, saying that the aims are fantastic, etc. And we've got another comment here regarding the beaches in Jamaica. Now, we have been hearing the cries around the world from our brothers and sisters in Jamaica, who are furious, really, that they are not able to enjoy their own beaches, that their land, their coastal land, is being taken away. It's been given to foreign investors. It's been sold off, and the ordinary Jamaican can't use their own beaches. What's going on? And is this something that you're in agreement with, this policy direction? Or if not, what would you put in its place? What sort of changes would we expect to see if your government was elected?
Thank you. The UIC is 100% in opposition to the current policies which are being pursued. which are designed to systematically deny the Jamaican people access to their land, which includes their beach. So our policy of returning the land to the people means returning also the beach to the people, all our beaches. There should be no private beaches at all in Jamaica, no private beaches, because every inch of Jamaica, every borderline in Jamaica belongs to the people. You must be able to enter your country from and leave from any one of those points on a boat, on a raft, or swimming, whatever works for you. So the UIC is going to protect our beaches for the purpose of the enjoyment of all Jamaicans. Now, we understand that one of the reasons why a person might want to block off a piece of the beach to protect their asset, which might be further inland, a hotel or so on. Why are they doing this? Well, because our government has not really been very clean. Our government have not really developed a Jamaica where the people understand the importance of cleanliness, of order, of decency, of beauty. And so we're going to ensure that we enforce a Jamaica where all of Jamaica, from east to west and north to south, the entire Jamaica, look, smells, and feels like a tourist resort. Not for tourists, but for we the people, because we respect ourselves and we have a government that respects us. And so our government is going to make sure we have a clean and beautiful Jamaica, a well-maintained Jamaica, proper sidewalks, proper street lights, proper garbage disposal bins, proper parks and areas for you to sit and enjoy God's beautiful creation. And that includes our beaches. So once you have a government that's now going to care for and protect our environment for our enjoyment, the beaches will now be accessible to all, and the owners of properties close to the beaches will not be worried that the beaches are going to become some dirty, poorly maintained area that causes congregation of people doing really bad things on them, because you're going to properly police your spaces and making sure that it's okay. So the UIC is going to ensure that Jamaica and all Jamaicans have access to our beaches in full, but it's also going to make sure that we have law and order and beauty all around the island.
Sounds like a good combination to me. What do you think, family, in the chat? And got some more comments coming in here. Mr. Wilfred, thank you for your comment as well. Mr. Wilfred is saying the family also has to understand the colonial enemy, because the colonial enemy is constantly attacking us. Do you understand what Mr. Wilfred is talking about there, Mr.
Sure.
Patterson? And if so, would you like to comment on how you might be able to protect Jamaicans from the colonial enemy, the former colonizers who seem to be taking back control of Jamaica under the guise of investors? I mean, what's your position? Okay, I seem to have lost Mr. Patterson there for a little while. His camera seems to have frozen, but hopefully he will come out and come back in again very soon. So, family, if you've got any questions for Mr. Patterson, yeah, please do drop them in the chat, and I will pose the questions to you, to him rather. Just wondering what's going on there. So let's just remove Mr. Patterson there from the screen, and hopefully he's going to come back in again in a very short while. I'll be keeping my eye out there. So yeah, you heard what he had to say regarding the beaches. It's a very real concern at the moment among Jamaicans, as well as crime, as well as the lack of educational opportunities, lack of job opportunities, etc. In Jamaica right now. And we are hearing from Mr. Joseph Patterson. Okay, he's joined us backstage. Let's bring him back on. Yeah, it looks as though your internet froze for a little while, so
yes,
we're delighted to have you back with us.
No problem.
But yeah, I must say I am enjoying your vision for Jamaica. I'm getting a feel for a Jamaica that's safer for all, that's cleaner for all, that's more productive for all. for every Jamaican to be able to enjoy the beauty of their country. And isn't that just what it's supposed to be like? In
Absolutely,
every
absolutely.
Caribbean stroke African country around the world. So
Well,
I think we lost you there.
yeah, the truth
Yeah, in
is,
this flow.
the,
Carry
the,
on.
the truth is, every country in the world can benefit from what the UIC is proposing. Our model of governance, and I haven't even gotten into it yet with you, but our model of governance is suited to every country. But particularly, we're hopeful that one, we use Jamaica as a model to show the world what good governance look like, and particularly to influence the rest of the Caribbean and then all of Africa and our people in general, because there's a special place in the world for the African. And by African, I'm not talking about those who claim African ancestry because they colonized Africa. I'm talking about those who are indigenously of African heritage. So I want us to rediscover who we are and have a clear mission and plan for getting there. I want us to kind of reach the place in our dialogue where we're not so much concerned about the colonial powers anymore, except to recognize them for what they have done and are still doing. But I want us to turn inwards a little bit and start taking responsibility ourselves for the fact that we were the reasons. We are the reason why we were enslaved. We failed to protect our freedom. We failed to protect our territory. We failed to do the right things to own our industries and to extract the wealth from our own industries and use that to ensure that we could have our full place on the world stage. Now, if we don't do that, if we don't accept responsibility and keep blaming those others who came in, who abducted us, who raped us, who stole our history, stole our inventions, stole our knowledge, stole our people, if we focus primarily on that, then we remain a victim and we don't do anything. We beg for reparation, we hope for reparation, and we sit there and then we follow the models they give us of economics. We follow the model they give us of education. We follow the models they give us of healthcare, instead of recognizing that we need to take charge of our governance. We need to take charge of our education. We need to take charge of our health services and healthcare and the whole philosophy around health. We need to take charge of our economy. We need to redefine politics and then show the world that we have the capacity to build great solutions in all of these areas. And so the UIC is bent on giving the Black man back his voice, not simply as an orator, not simply as a talker. And we have had many of those. They've gone to the UN and they've given wonderful speeches. Now we need action. We need action in terms of good governance, having governments that are anti-corrupt, having governments that are economically or financially efficient, having governments that are very effective at creating clean environments, safe environments, and orderly environments where all of our people can be optimally productive. Having a government that can design an education system and model that brings out the best in our people. Having a government that results in 90% or more of our students doing very, very well, instead of 70% or more of them doing very, very poor. We must take responsibility now, not blame the colonial master. Yes, we must understand the trickeries of the colonial masters. We must understand the game of the colonial powers. We must understand the tricks and traps that we can fall into, but we must not remain victims of them forever. The time for victimhood is over, and the time for action is now. It was yesterday, and it is today, and it will be tomorrow. We must start to act now to create effective governances in our country. Governances that results in 99% of our taxes going to provide the quality environment that we need to succeed. We must stop having a country where we're spending most of our money on paying interest on loans that we're getting from the foreign powers. Forgive me, Ms. Shanice, but this is very important. We must move away from the debt-based model of economics, where we think that the way to continue to govern ourselves is to keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, whether from international banking cartels or from local banking cartels. We need to understand how money works, understand economics, and know that government does not need to borrow at interest. We have the capacity to print or produce the money that we need, as long as we do that responsibly, so that the money supply never exceeds our productive capacity. And if we do that, we will never have to borrow money at interest, and our economy would grow exponentially faster. And whatever taxes we pay will, instead of paying interest and principal on bad debt, will simply be spent on producing clean, orderly, safe, healthy, and highly productive economies with a citizenry that is well educated and very healthy.
Thank you so much for that. You've already got the vote of Kwame Aboche. He's saying that, Baba Joe, you should be the leader of your island. So you've already got a vote for leadership there.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. And, Sister Afrijamo was saying that, Jamaica needs to consider stop exporting its natural resources and be looking at developing Jamaicans so that they can make use of those resources themselves. And there was a question that was asked saying that, great policies, but how are you going to finance them? And I think you touched on it really when you started talking about, redirecting the taxes and reducing the reliance on IMF and responsibly printing your own money. I wonder, do you want to elaborate a bit more? I'm sure this is a question that comes up all the time. Sounds like great policies and initiatives, but very importantly, how are you going to finance those programs?
Wonderful. I want to touch on one thing before I get to the financing, which is a very important question. You mentioned earlier the idea of selling our resources. And this reminds me that we need to talk about the bauxite industry. First of all, let me tell you, wherever you are in the world, you are free to join the UIC and support what we're doing. So whether you're in Africa or Asia or Europe or the Caribbean, this movement is an international movement to make Jamaica first what we want, and then to export that to other nations. Now, on the issue of the bauxite, which is a very important topic, if you think about it, what are we doing with bauxite? Jamaica is a small piece of land, relatively speaking. This land is our asset. This land belongs to our people. When you have a government that allows a foreign entity to come into your country and dig out your land and send your land overseas in the form of bauxite, and in the process of doing that, they leave behind vast swaths of mud lakes, vast swaths of land that has been destroyed, its mineral assets extracted, the wealth of that land depleted. And they consistently dig out more and more and more and more of your land. While doing so, they pollute your water table. While doing so, they pollute your air. While doing so, they destroy your farmlands and destroy your farmers. While doing so, they poison your citizens through their water, through the air, and through even the fish in the rivers that they pollute, that is then extracted and eaten by the people. So systematically, you are destroying your people by destroying their land, destroying their water, polluting their air, and making sick your human capital. That is counterproductive. And for the last 60 years, more than 60 years, we have two colonial parties that have so loved their colonial masters that they have consistently agreed to cooperate with them in extracting a non-renewable resource that is leaving our people and our land sick, that is undermining our water security, our food security, and is threatening the long-term economic well-being of our people. The UIC is going to eliminate bauxite mining from Jamaica and make our lands our greatest asset, treat it as such, and ensure that our lands in perpetuity produces the food, the water, and the energy we need to be a truly independent nation.
Another admirable policy program there as well that you're going to be pursuing. Thank you so much for that. And you actually alluded to a new model of governance as well,
Yes.
that you said could actually be replicated by other African and Caribbean countries. I wonder if you want to elaborate a little bit more on what this model of governance is. I mean, all of what you've said so far is what we want to hear and what we want to see happen. And you've got a plan for financing it as well. But
Sure.
what sort of government model are you thinking of putting in the place of the one that we've got at the moment, or what convinces you that this new model will actually work?
Thank you for that question. Speaking of model, there are two parts to any model. There's the systematic part, and then there's the financial part. And I think one of your viewers was asking earlier on about how we're going to finance it. You mentioned it again, and I'll briefly touch on that before I go to the governance model, if you don't mind. It's very important that we ask the question: how do we fund what we're talking about? Now, remember, government has no money. None at all. Government has $0. Government gets money from only one source: you, the citizens. And so the only way the government has money is if it taxes you, the citizens, in order to give you a service. The problem we have in Jamaica is that our government taxes us but doesn't give us the service. So we don't have good roads generally. We don't have optimal schools generally, and we don't have effective healthcare generally, because there's a disconnection between the taxes and the service. Now, our government takes in approximately $972 billion every year in revenues, which means there's no shortage of revenues. However, where you have a problem is where the government borrows money from others, like the government is just doing now. They're just about to get a new IMF agreement. When they borrow these monies from others and then steal or waste a large portion of that money and then mismanages the rest, so you do not have the monies actually impacting the kind of development that you need in both the human capital and the other capital in the country, then what you have now is a larger and larger share of the tax dollars collected going to paying a bad debt and the interest on that bad debt. That has been the destructive factor for all developing countries, so-called, because they've been tricked by their colonial masters into having a constitution that is poorly written and poorly designed to protect the interest of the people, but which gives politicians unfettered access to the tax dollars of the people and to the ability to borrow money on top of the heads of the people, and then turn around and punish the people to pay back those debts. And when they're punishing you to pay back those debts, what it means is less and less of the tax dollars collected is available for the police, or available for the nurse, or available for the teachers, or available for the roads, or available for the water system, or available for the expansion of the electrification system, or available for equipment and tools in the schools. So because of their unfettered access to taxing you and to borrowing money on your head and to waste, steal, or mismanage that money, you find that you ask me a question like, where will the money come from? The money is there. And there's even more money available. The more your system of governance is effective, is the more productive your people become. And the more productive your people become is the more tax revenues you have to continue to protect their individual and collective sovereignty with a system or environment that continues to empower them to do well. People are empowered if they are safe. People are empowered if the environment they're living in is clean and beautiful. People are empowered if the society is orderly and efficient for them to get about and go about their business in a productive way. People are empowered by good governance and they're disempowered by bad governance. Bad governance robs them of their tax dollars and punishes them for politicians' mistakes and theft. And so the UIC now has a model of governance that will correct all of that. Our system of governance, I'll pause there so you can say something, then I'll go into the system. Go ahead, Ms. Shanice.
Okay, no, it's absolutely fine. It's good to hear again where the problem lies, being clearly set out by yourself, and it's giving us also an insight into where the real challenges lie in the country. And I'm picking up on some of the other points and questions that are being raised in the chat as well. That's kind of indicating and signaling to us where some of the problems lie, but I'll come back to that after you've elaborated a bit more on the model. But yeah, as you were saying, a more productive country, a more economically productive country has got to be good for all of Jamaica. Wow, I'm excited about this vision and I wish we could start implementing it tomorrow, but obviously there's quite a journey ahead of you to get to the place that you need to be so you can begin to affect some of these policies. But first of all, before I home in a bit more on the policies and the Queen and other questions, well, the King now of the royal family and other questions that have been asked in the chat, do you want to elaborate further on the model
Sure.
of governance?
Yes.
Okay, over to you.
So it's another mouthful. So I'm warning you that it's a bit nuanced. I'm not going to get into too much of the details, but I want to give you a good overview of the model. So
Brilliant.
Our model of governance, the current system of governance we have in Jamaica and in most of the former colonies of any one of the colonial powers, takes away sovereignty from the people, and it vests sovereignty in like a monarch or a parliament or a president or prime minister, and they said those are sovereign. In the UIC model, we see no such sovereign. You, every single citizen, is sovereign in our model. So sovereignty resides in the individual and by extension in the collective. So that's where we first begin. So there's no monarch at the top. There's no president at the top. There's no prime minister at the top. There's no parliament at the top. There's no Congress at the top. At the top of our new system and our new constitution is we the people. And for you to enshrine that at the top as the sovereignty of the individual and sovereignty of the collective, you must have a constitution whereby the country is ruled by law and not by the whims of men. So the law must be so designed from the very beginning to protect the sovereignty of the individual. You call that the rule of law. You'll hear that talked about in other history books, but as you listen closer to me, you'll see that this is bigger than what you have heard. It is the African way that was missed along the way. So first and foremost, we're going to have a constitution that protects the sovereignty of the individual. This means that no government, no group, and no person will have the right to violate, by way of force or fraud, your life, your liberty, or your property. So we're enshrining property law without any excuses. We're enshrining your individual liberty, and we're enshrining the right to your life. That puts you in the driver's seat, number one. Now we go down the ladder now as to how this works its way out into governing. Number one. Number two, you're going to elect your executive branch of government separate from two legislative branches and separate from the judicial branch. So you're going to have an executive branch. In Jamaica right now, the prime minister is simply the leader of the winning party. The people didn't select him. In the new model, you're going to have, similar to what you have in the US, a national election for a national president that's going to be elected by the people directly. You have that in some countries, okay? This president, however, does not operate as a miniature dictator. This president is constrained by five other individuals, so 6 of them in the executive council, 5 other persons. 2 of those persons will run with the president. One will be a general secretary. That person is going to be chief of staff. So we're going to get the chance to see who the president's pick is for chief of staff, who is going to be organizing all the other ministerial or executive portfolios. The second one will be a treasury secretary. This person will be the equivalent of a finance minister. So when the president is running for office, he's running with 2 running mates. One, the treasury secretary, and one, the general secretary. So we will elect those 3 persons on 1 ticket. The moment we elect them, we know who our finance minister is going to be, and we know who our chief of staff, the person who will oversee the human resource aspect of government, who that person will be. Simultaneously, we're going to elect 3 vice presidents separate and apart from the president. 1 for each of our 3 counties, Cornwall, Middlesex, and Surrey. Each of them elected on their own individual tickets as independent persons in the executive branch. So they're not necessarily related to the president or of any party or group that he or she might belong to. So in this core executive, you will have 6. They must operate on a consensus basis, the 6 of them. These 6 persons, under the leadership of the president, will nominate all the other government ministers, Minister of Health, Minister of Education, Minister of Industry, Minister of Transport, for example. Now, these persons that they're going to nominate cannot be elected politicians. Currently, in the current system, we have a mixing of the executive and the legislature. Remember, the prime minister comes from the legislature in Jamaica. He's one of the 63 MPs. All of the ministers of government are one of those MPs, and a few from the Senate. So you're mixing the two. So you're removing separation of duty, and you're creating conflicts of interest. We're going to rip that apart. So no more conflict of interest. The executive branch is going to be elected, the 6 of them, by the people, county level, national level, and they come together. They will nominate the best Jamaican from anywhere in the world to be the minister of the different portfolio ministry. So let's say there's a Jamaican living in Gambia who is highly qualified and competent and able to lead effectively the health ministry. We'll find him, invite him, and if he so accepts, he moves back to Jamaica and will now sit as health minister or industry minister. Why am I doing this? We have to realize that Jamaica is bigger than who live in Jamaica. Jamaica is for all Jamaicans. And we have suffered from brain drain. Many Jamaicans have left Jamaica as economic refugees because bad governance have pushed them out of the country. The country could not provide them good jobs. The country could not provide them a decent income. The country could not make them feel safe. And so many Jamaicans left Jamaica because they have been forced out by bad governance. So our policy is to create a governance model that reaches out and brings back in the talents that we have lost, correcting the brain drain. And so now all of our ministers are going to be nominated by the core executive, qualified Jamaicans from anywhere around the world. Now the Senate, the current Senate, Madame Shanice, the current Senate is formed by the Prime Minister picking him friend and company them. Any 13 person he wants, he picks and put there. The opposition leader picking any 8 people he wants and put there. And so we have a Senate of 21 people who are partisan lackeys and rubber stamps. In the UIC model, to be a senator, you must be elected by your parish. So we have 14 parishes in Jamaica. So every parish will nominate and elect one person to sit in the Senate on their behalf. Because the Senate is regionalized, any law which comes from the lower house, as they call it, to the Senate will now be scrutinized from a parochial standpoint, from a regional standpoint, to see that it is equitable and balanced and just. Similarly, when the president, working with the 6 in the core executive, nominates a person to serve as a minister, that nomination must first go to the Senate, and the Senate must publicly vet that person so we can all hear and see. And then the Senate makes a recommendation to the House of Representatives. That's all of those who are elected as MPs for their different constituencies. All of those persons now get to vote to confirm or to reject the recommendation. What does this do for us? It ensures that, before I go there, those in the House of Representatives, and let me just put it in perspective. So you have the House of Representatives, which is all of those community representatives, all the persons who are representing their various communities. You have the Senate, which represents the parishes, and you have the executive, which is hired by the people to take care of the executive function of government. These 3 bodies now become a check and balance on each other. But here's the kicker. None of them can be elected by big money. The new system we have is 100% funded publicly. So if you want to be a candidate, whether you're rich or poor, you will have equal access and equal support to running for office because you're going to be funded publicly for your campaign. But here's how we fund the campaign. Very simple. Once you pass a good governance test and are able to get a few people in your community to say that they're willing to give you their votes and sign off on that as a nomination form for you, you will get the same access to radio, television, internet, town hall meetings, and debates. And that will be the sum total of your campaign. And so everybody will, all the candidates on an equal footing, equal platform, and so they'll be voting based on the content of their character, the content of their message, as opposed to who has the most money and is backed by the richest people. So we're going to eliminate big money from the campaign process and make it a fully public process, which then will make sure the candidates can speak their minds and vote clearly because they're not controlled now by anybody except their constituents. That model makes sure now, because as an MP, you cannot control any money, you cannot control the program, you will now be watching the executive body like a hawk to look for any mistake and to look for anything that is going contrary to the policy and to the plan. The same thing from the Senate. And this will hold the entire system accountable and create the checks and balances that have been missing for decades from not only Jamaica, but all of the developing world. In summary.
Sounds like a model that we need to be implementing straight away. And the idea of the local representatives as well, you know, being elected by the people in that direct way to the House will make sure that they are representing the interest of their people and not just themselves. Otherwise, they won't be re-elected to that position.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, another very well thought through policy, it sounds to me, another well thought out model that could address a lot of the problems and challenges that we've been faced with. While time is whizzing by, we are working our way up to the top of the second hour in the show as well. We are talking, family, to Mr. Patterson, who is the leader of Jamaica's third largest political party. And he has been sharing with us what his vision is going to be, what is now for Jamaica and the changes that he wants to see. And he's been sharing with us some very well thought out policies, programs and initiatives for young people, single parents, for the economy, for the environment of Jamaica, for making it cleaner, safer, redressing crime, improving education, you know, some well thought out policies. You haven't mentioned so far, Sister Afajama is asking Mr. Patterson, will you rid the country of the so-called royal family? Would you be thinking of getting them off of our backs? and to stop them from stealing, she says, from Jamaica. What's your position regarding the royal family?
That's the easiest question I've had to answer so far tonight. The First of all, I do not see any family as the royal family. I do not see anybody as being superior to me or you. We're all equal before the laws of the universe and the God or the Creator that placed us here. So I do not recognize any royal family, and Jamaica will not in any way, as a new Jamaica, based on the UIC model, recognize anybody, whether they're black or white, pink or otherwise, as a royal family. We do not believe in monarchies. We do not see any human being as being more superior to any other human being. We must all be equal before the laws of the land. We must all be treated equally. When I become the president of Jamaica, the laws that applies to the poorest of person in the land will be the same laws that applies to me. The same degree of any benefits that I may receive as president must be the same benefits accorded all Jamaicans. We're going to strip the nation of the idea of any man or woman being more superior than another. We are going to have a meritocracy. It's going to be a meritocratic system. So those who, for example, in sports, we have a meritocracy. The person who runs the fastest gets the gold medal. We don't try to make everybody their economic outcome equal. What we're going to do is to make sure that the playing field is as equal as possible. That's why we're going to make sure every child gets the nutrition, education, and healthcare and housing that they need. That's why we're going to have a work fair program for those who have found themselves in a bad place. That's why we're going to have a youth employment solution program to give all of our young people a head start, whether straight into the workforce or through the trades or through the academic avenues. But we are never going to see any human being, local or foreign, as superior to any of us.
Ashe, I have to agree with you on that. I've just been flicking through and looking at some more of the questions in the chat, and feel free to pull out and respond to any yourself, Mr. Patterson. So let me quickly flick back there. I want to rise up the Jamaica Junkra in the O's. He says, how does the ICU plan to wrestle away the wealth of the PSOJ, who are so deeply entrenched in Jamaica's economy and politics? Someone who's very familiar with Jamaican politics and the economic challenges I think Jamaica faces. So who are the PSOJ? How is it that they find themselves so deeply entrenched in Jamaica's economy, and why should it be a challenge to, wrench some of that power back from them? Let's hear what you have to say on this one,
Sure.
please.
The PSOJ is really the continuation of the plantocracy. So you might recall back in the days of slavery, the slave owners would come together and make laws and rules for the slaves. For example, one of their laws and rules was to make sure the slaves couldn't read. They would also have laws of punishment to keep the slave in line. So that group is known as the plantocracy. And even after slavery, after 1838, that plantocracy remained. Those who are the wealthy landowners, those who continue to own the capital that was stolen from the slaves, they formed themselves into a body, a group. Now in 1944, that group existed as the plantocracy, same way. And they were the ones that orchestrated and controlled the creation of the two parties that we have now, right? So they were smart. They know that change has to come. And what the colonial powers and what the plantocracy have always done is that when they see the pressure coming from those that they are mistreating or those that they're exploiting, they would bring in new ideas and new system to placate them. So one of the ideas that they brought in 1838 was to say we're going to free the slaves. And the slaves were very excited, the queen said, you are now free. And they were all excited and happy. Now, the slaves are always a little behind the colonial powers, the colonial masters. The colonial masters are always one step ahead of us. They are always thinking through carefully how they're going to manipulate and trick us. We're always looking at simple answers, nice sounding answers like free education or free healthcare and not asking, yeah, but what do you mean by that exactly? Does it mean I will lose the right to be educated the way I want to be educated or the way I want to educate my children? Will you now be able to control my curriculum and brainwash me by telling me it's free? So the same thing. When they said we're freeing the people, they freed the slaves, but did not give them back their property, did not give them the lost wages, and did not ensure that they were educated about property rights. So the slaves were now free to beg a
Or
job.
would you say enslaved Africans?
They
Because they
were
were
free.
slaves, the
they were
enslaved.
they were free to beg a job. They were free to go back to their colonial masters and beg a job from them. So they weren't really free. Now, over time, the freed slave gradually became aware that he wasn't really that free. And so he agitated. So by 1944, look how long it took from 1838 to 1944. It took all that time before the slave agitated enough for them to say, okay, we're now going to give you the right to vote. And the slave again got very excited. Yay, I will now have the right to vote. I am now equal with my white masters. Again, he was tricked. Didn't realize that he was being tricked at the time. And he went and he voted. But what did they do? What is he going to vote for? So what the slave master did was to give him two sides of the same coin to vote for. One side they call PNP, the People's National Party, and the other side they call JLP, the Jamaica Labour Party. But they didn't tell the people that it's still the same coin. The coin controlled by the plantocracy, the coin controlled by the PSOJ, or Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, the coin controlled by the colonial master. Remember, those two parties were used to get rid of Marcus Garvey and to get rid of Marcus Garvey's party, because Marcus Garvey's party was telling the people, let's unite and let's fight for true freedom so we can set up our own school, our own industries, our own airline, our own shipping service, our own everything, Let us own our material. Let us own our industries. Let us own ourselves. And so the plantocracy gave us two fake political parties, yeah, so that we could take our eyes off the prize, which is freedom, which is unity, which is liberty, which is ownership of ourselves and our resources. And instead now we start to fight each other. So the two parties now fight, and they tell us all kind of jokes and lies and make up all kind of party slogans and get us all excited. And then we start to cuss each other. Go, you from the side there. Go, you from the side there. And you're not good, and you're not good. And we're fighting each other now, missing the mark, losing our minds, losing our purpose. And so we start to fight to the point where we start to kill each other. By 1980, we murdered 800 of ourselves in the name of partisan politics. And that is why the UIC system of governance removes partisan politics and makes us a Congress where you're elected independently to think and represent your people and not a party. And so now you're going to come to the table to talk about policy, not about your party bad or your party bad. We don't care about no party no more. And so they have tricked us from 1944 until 1962, when we start to agitate again, because every time they trick us, after a while we start to get something right here. So over almost over 100 years, from 1838 to 1944, right? And then 18 years from 1944 to 1962, we start to agitate. And so they say, all right, let's give them independence now. So now they tack on to the right to vote independence, well knowing that we will not be independent because the same people who abducted us, raped us, beat us, and robbed us also wrote the Constitution for us. So how can the person who robbed, raped, and beat you write the laws that will now govern the way you live your life, and you accept that as your constitution? And so for 60 years now, just to show you how bad and ruthless these two parties are, for 60 years now, they pretend as if they might want to change that constitution, but have kept us under the bondage of colonial rule in a fake independence. Just like how we had a fake freedom, and just like how we have a tricky, misleading so-called democracy where it's one man, one vote, when really it's one man, one vote for only one coin, because the PSOJ plantocracy controls the coin. They control whose name will be on the ballot, not simply being on the ballot, but whose name the people will see on television, whose name the people will see in the newspaper, whose name the people hear on the radio. They control that. They control the media. They control the Electoral Commission of Jamaica. They control all of the levers that will influence the people as to who to vote. And they create a false or fake dichotomy of two or more parties and use that to distract and to deceive. They can continue to extract the wealth of the people by stealth. And that's what the UIC is going to destroy. They know that. And even though we're disadvantaged as a party because we don't have the money that they have yet, that money is coming. When the minds of our people are awake, we're going to move from what we have now, which is 192 persons who donated last year, to 1 million donors. And when we get there, there's no stopping us.
Well, I certainly hope that you get there sooner rather than later.
Sooner rather than later.
Yeah, a great job you've got ahead of you. Time, is almost up now. Maybe you'd like to look in the chat and pull out one of the questions that you'd like to go out on, Mr. Patterson. There are.
Wow, there's a lot of comments here. Wow. I can't pick one. There's so many. You
okay, let me pick one on the Haitians. Because, we're hearing outside of the Caribbean that there's a lot of discrimination and hatred shown towards the Haitians, who are, Jamaica's neighbors almost. What is your view on the Jamaica-Haiti situation, and what sort of relations would you like to see Jamaica have with its Haitian neighbors?
Sure. Haiti is exactly where Jamaica is heading and where the entire Caribbean is heading and where they want the entire African people to head. The global powers want Africa, Jamaica, Haiti, any country where you have an African majority, they want those countries to fail. It's a pity that the leadership of Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean have also failed Haiti because they are all controlled by the colonial masters, and therefore they have no interest in truly helping Haiti to be extricated from the claws of the colonial powers. And they can't do it because they're committed to maintaining the status quo, right? So we don't have Caribbean leaders, we don't have African leaders who are really bent on the change that the UIC is talking about. So when the UIC becomes government, we're going to extend our model of governance to the Asian people, and we're going to help the Asian people to implement good governance in their country and to recover from the devastating policies of the colonial powers that have punished that country for being the first country, Black country, African country in this hemisphere that was able to free itself. Haiti is a shining example of what a determined people could do in the fact that they're, freed themselves, but even before the Americans. And they have been punished for it. And Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean has stood by, as well as Africa. We've all stood by and allowed Haiti to be crushed by the colonial powers, be it France or the US and others. And it's time we stand up for Haiti and stand with Haiti and help Haiti to be the glorious country that she was meant to be.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. We want to see you stand by Haiti as well. Haiti played a formidable role in history, led the way, to inspiring the other Caribbean islands and African countries to get their independence. And they showed us, didn't they, how it needs to be done. And they have been paying the price for it ever since. We certainly want to see relations improve between Haiti and its neighbors.
There,
Afujamo said, mhm.
there appears to be a question about it says here, eyes wide shut, says we cannot get information on the UIC electoral record. Sister Shanice refused to ask Mr. Patterson. What is that person talking about? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. Maybe they put a question in the chat that I may have missed. I'm
But
not sure.
let me try to answer without knowing the full detail of the question. The UIC was registered as a political party on December 2nd, 2019. That was after 10 months of fighting with the Electoral Commission because they had changed the laws, which wiped out all third parties in Jamaica. So the laws were changed in 2018 by the two colonial parties. They wrote new laws to make them the only two parties in Jamaica. The UIC fought that. All the other third parties just shrank away. They just dissipated. The UIC fought them for 10 months straight and finally won. And then we became the official third party on December 2nd, 2019. No elections were called until 2020 in the midst of the pandemic that was going on. The UIC boycotted those elections because we saw a huge inconsistency. The government saying that, the situation was so bad that people had to be shut down in their homes, their businesses were shut down, our schools were closed, but yet still the government wanted us to come out and participate in an election, which would be contrary to all the other actions taken by the government. The Constitution allowed for a delay in the elections, and the government chose not to use those provisions in the Constitution, but to push ahead. And so the UIC, on a ground of principle, decided that we would not participate in those elections in 2020. And so we're now gearing up and getting ready for elections in early 2023 for the local government elections, and for general elections where you'll have the MPs being elected between 2024 and 2025. Very likely in 2024 because that is the traditional 1 year in advance election. So we'll see.
Yes, we will. And also, thank you, Sister Afujamo. Yes, at one point I was trying to interject there to qualify that we don't describe those Africans that came to Jamaica as slaves. They arrived as Africans who were enslaved. So yeah, so thank you, Afujamo, for reminding me to qualify that point there as well. Wow, we are 2 minutes away from the top of the hour, and so many more questions in the chat. My apologies that I haven't been able to get round to your question, but I certainly hope that from the interview today, you actually now feel as though you know who Mr. Joseph Patterson actually is. You know about the UIC, you know about its policies, programs, and initiatives that it wants to introduce and implement should it be elected, or when they are elected as the third party. Let's speak it into existence. To everyone in the chat, I want to thank you so much, for keeping it lively and for, helping with all of your questions. And I'm going through and I'm seeing so many great questions that, I would love to have put to the future president of Jamaica, but maybe at some point in the future, we'll get the opportunity for him to come back so that, the question that you didn't get answered today may get answered next time round. So, Mr. Patterson, wonderful vision for Jamaica. We love Jamaica. We all do so much. And our desire is to see a safe, healthy, more prosperous and successful Jamaica. It's already successful despite its challenges. Can you imagine what it would be like, without all of the distractions that's happening at the moment, and without all of the orchestrated, like criminal activities that's going on? It
Mhm.
would be one of the best countries to be in the world. And we look forward to you taking Jamaica to that level. So for
Thank you.
joining us today and for sharing your vision with us, we thank you so, so much.
Sure. Let me just say a big thank you to you as well and for your audience. I felt very at home, very comfortable. And some wants to know how to reach us. It's UIC Jamaica. So just type in uicjamaica.com to get our website, or UIC Jamaica on Facebook or Twitter or anywhere. You'll find it's UIC Jamaica. And somebody asked if I've been to Africa. The answer is yes. My favorite place in Africa is Ghana. I've spent a bit of time there. I've been in the hills of Kumasi. I've been with the people in Accra. I've spent time with those who don't even speak English. And it has been quite a joy and reward for me. I've also been to the different slave coast areas and looked at what our people went through. And so I'm 100% committed to my African heritage and to my people and to our mission of reclaiming our sovereignty, reclaiming our heritage, and reclaiming our rightful place in history. So thank you all for having me, and I look forward to serving you in whatever capacity I find myself.
Thank you once again, Mr. Joseph Patterson, for being a guest on the Sister Shanice Show. Thanks once again to everyone in the audience. Join us same time next week. We are going to be hearing from King Joshua Mponga. Absolutely looking forward to that interview next strong as well. So thanks again, Mr. Patterson, and to Mrs. Patterson. We thank you too for helping to organize today's event, and all being well, we'll get a revisit from Mr. Patterson at some point in the future where he'll be sharing some great news with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All the
More
best.
love,
Take care.
family. Sister Shanice out of here for now. Bye for now.